Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first Tiger Times Sports Talk podcast. I am Alex Duer, joined by the resident, smart, intuitive columnist David Jacobs to talk everything you need to know about this year's March Madness tournament. But before we get started, I would just like to say that I'm so glad it is March. The weather's getting warmer, spring break is getting closer, but more importantly, the start of March means that college basketball is in peak action as the 68-team field has been revealed and me and David are ready to walk through everything you need to know about this year's tournament. But before we start off, let's talk about kind of how the season's gone so far. David, give me some of your thoughts.
Well, first off, that is quite the kind introduction you gave me, Alex. You are just as smart and sport intuitive as I am, but it has been a crazy, crazy season so far. New Mexico State canceled their entire season due to multiple off the court issues, but they're not in the tournament, so we're not really going to get into that too much. Texas abruptly fired Chris Beard, their head coach, after domestic violence allegations. And they are in the tournament.
Yeah, Chris Beard, I think, was rumored for another job recently, but
he just got hired by Ole Miss last night.
Yeah. Oh, he got hired.
Yeah.
Man. Well, we'll see what happens down there. But yeah. I think the biggest storyline is definitely Alabama.
Yeah, with Brandon Miller and Darius Miles. According to ESPN, Brandon Miller allegedly provided and delivered the handgun to teammate Darius Miles, who proceeded to shoot and kill 23-year-old Jamia Janae Harris. And on March 11th, Darius Miles was indicted on capital murder charges, despite Brandon Miller playing punishment-free the whole time.
So yeah, the story goes, for those that are not too much into it, I'll go quick about this. Brandon Miller was apparently Darius Miles texted Brandon Miller and said, hey, hand me my handgun. But then that has not been solidified. There's been no record of that. So what it really means for Alabama is that if Brandon Miller is involved, then things are going to get bad. But as it stands, it really seems that Nate Oates and Brandon Miller are just focused on playing basketball. And really so is all the other 67 teams in the field as well. So let's move on from that storyline. Let's talk about some of the feel-good stories. I think you had Kennesaw State first up, didn't you, David?
Yeah, Kennesaw State, first time in the tournament, 14 seed under Amir Abdur-Rahim, and he is becoming no longer just NBA all-time great Sharif Abdur-Rahim's brother. He was hired before the 2019 season. In 2019, he went 1-28 with his Kennesaw State team. In 2020, they went 5-19. 2021, last year, 13-18. And this year, they went 26-8 and are the conference champions. They are scoring just about 76 points per game, which is top 100 in the country. Their defense is all right, but they have a top 100 defensive rating with a 97.7. And they are led by junior Chris Youngblood with 15 points per game. What a name Youngblood is.
Chris Youngblood, oh man, you see that on the back of the uniform. You see that in the announcements. I would not want to go up against that.
And they are also led by seniors Terrell Burden and Demon Robinson. They both chip in a combined 23 points per game. So it's definitely a veteran team that has been through this rebuild under Abdur-Rahim. And they have some good games in their non-conference. A 14-point loss to IU, 10-point loss to Florida, and a 2-point loss to VCU. All three are good teams. They definitely play up to the competition, and they took care of their conference play season. Xavier could be on upset watch this week. But Xavier has quite the size advantage. So I think it's probably likely that they're a one-and-done team this year. But just quite the story for Kennesaw State nonetheless, and a great season.
Definitely. I looked at their college basketball reference. This year was the first year they had a winning record ever in program history.
Yeah, made it to the tournament. First time.
Make it to the tournament. They'll definitely have that dog in them, that fight within them. So we'll see if they can live up to Xavier or not. Moving on, let's talk about Kansas State, another team that has rebounded from some tough times. But this Kansas State team is good. David, talk to me about it.
Yeah, Kansas State, new head coach this year, Jerome Tang. Their former coach, Bruce Weber, had the Wildcats competitive just about every year from 2012 to 2019. But after 2019, 3 straight losing seasons for the Wildcats, and he ultimately got fired. Jerome Tang and the Wildcats had an unreal non-conference schedule going 12-2, although they did lose to my Butler Bulldogs.
I did see that.
But they didn't really have any expectations going to the season. But they are led by former Florida Gator Keontae George, who collapsed on the court for the Florida Gators December 12th, 2020, and has returned to the game this season and has dominated 17 points per game, 7 rebounds, 2 assists. He even improved from before his collapse. In 2020, he played 4 games, averaging 16 points, 5 rebounds. So just quite the story with Keontae George and quite the story for Jerome Tang and the Wildcats.
Definitely. Yeah, just so great to see him back. And I believe these have 2 other players, Desi Sills and David Nagesson, all have previous tournament experience. So as that 3 seed, they definitely have a chip on their shoulder in that part. Moving on from K-State, let's see here. Let's talk about IU, fan favorites here in the state.
Yep.
It is so good to see them succeed again. Walk me through it, David.
And I will say that is a typo on my part. It is Keontae Johnson, not Keontae George. That
Yeah.
is my bad. But still, IU under Mike Wilson, back-to-back 20-win seasons for the first time since 2014 and 15 under Tom Crean. They peaked at 10th in the AP poll this year, led by future NBA players Trace Jackson Davis and Jalen Hood-Schifino. Jalen Hood-Schifino is probably done after this season, I would assume.
I think so.
He's projected to go, I think, top a little bit outside the lottery. He could be someone who improves his draft stock with another year at IU, but I would assume he's probably done and going to go straight to the NBA.
And then
Trace Jackson Davis
I
also said he was not going to return, even though he has an extra year.
Yeah, he might decide to transfer or go to the draft as well if he thinks his prospect is high enough. I've not really heard anything about that yet.
I doubt he transfers. He is IU through and through. He could have gone to the NBA so many times, but he has stuck it out. So props to him. Indiana guy from Center Grove.
Yeah, definitely.
And he brought his brother to play quarterback for IU, so hopefully their football team's a little bit better. But
Yeah,
this is basketball season now, so
been a rough few years for the football team, but IU basketball more than makes up for it.
yep.
Yeah, they'll face Kent State in the first round. Mike Woodson did make the tournament last year against St. Mary's, but I think if you're an IU fan, knowing you've got a high seed, hopefully things for the future are looking better for the Hoosiers. And I love to see it. Even as a Kentucky fan, when IU basketball is good, college basketball is pretty darn good itself.
I would agree.
And I think some of the second to last story I want to talk about is justice for Merrimack.
Yep. Merrimack won their conference tournament this year, ran the tables in the NEC, I think Northeast Conference, something like that. 12-4 finish. They have a lackluster offense, to be frank, but they have an elite defense. Let me just look it up here on College Basketball Reference. Yeah, they hold teams to 62 points per game. That's 17th best in the country, 15th best defensive rating, but they have a bottom 11 offense, just averaging 63 points per game.
And talk about polar opposites.
Yeah, but still elite defense. And they have honestly ran the tables for a while since moving up to D1 in their conference. Moved up in 2019-2020. They went 14-4, 20-win season. Next season, they went 9-9. Next season after that, 2021, 14-16. This year, 18-16 and 12-4 in conference play. It's a shame, but I do think they'll be eligible next season.
4 years? Yeah, 4 years.
And I think they could have slid in as a 15 seed if they were eligible this year. Probably a 16 seed as Fairleigh Dickinson is.
Definitely.
But I think they definitely could have been someone who was a popular upset pick if they made the tournament. But oh well.
So yeah, I think it was the second time in 3 or 4 years that happened to Merrimack. It also happened to Bellarmine from Louisville last year. And it makes sense because a transition period prevents teams from going back and forth when they feel they're good or not. But at the college level, I wouldn't really see teams doing that, and there's other ways around this. I think my proposition would be to make a commitment to D1, sign a contract saying you're going to go D1 for 3-4 years, and then if the team starts sucking, they just have to get through it or, face that. But I don't make the rules.
Yeah.
So
It could also This would be interesting. Could be like a kind of like a promotion relegation system, like soccer has overseas.
Definitely.
But that's a lot to get into, and probably a completely different episode for the podcast.
Definitely. If we ever get back to CFB talking about North Dakota State, that is who everyone likes to bring that
Yeah.
issue up with. And I think the last issue before we go into the NCAA tournament is the NIT tournament. There are so many blue blood teams in these high seeds that the NIT is probably worth watching this year. Talk me through that, David.
Yeah, so the NIT is honestly stacked this year. They have Rutgers, Cincinnati, Virginia Tech, New Mexico, Colorado, Seton Hall, Clemson, Vanderbilt, Michigan, Villanova, Wisconsin, Florida, Washington State, and Oklahoma State. I mean, Rutgers honestly should have been in the tournament.
Definitely.
I mean, compare all these resumes to, let's say, 17 Michigan State, and I think just about all these NIT teams have a better resume outside of maybe Seton Hall and Villanova.
And
I mean, Rutgers, 19 wins. This is just off the dome. They have 19 wins. Clemson, I think they have 20 or 21 wins.
21, 22-ish, maybe.
Yeah, and playing the NIT with 22 wins in a power conference is surprising.
And that's really because this year has been so tight in the middle. You look at the Big Ten especially, but many of the conferences have one or two teams at the top, but then going down, there's a lot of teams right there at that 20 and 10 point. Definitely some teams in the NIT that wish that would probably have a great chance to run deep into the tournament. But moving on, the field of 68 is set. Let's talk upsets. What is your prime upset game that you're looking at right now?
There's a lot of upsets that I'm confident in this year, Alex. But let's just go seed by seed, starting with the most likely 16 seed over a 1 seed, in my opinion, is either Southeast Missouri, also known as SEMO, or Texas A&M Corpus Christi over Alabama. Both SEMO and Corpus Christi could have been teams that might have been a 15 seed in another tournament. Alabama also, like we mentioned, has all the off the court issues. They could just not be focused for a play-in 16 seed. Obviously, not likely. It is not of something I'm putting in my bracket, but if there's going to be a 16 seed beating a 1 seed this year, it's going to be SEMO or Corpus Christi over Alabama.
I like that pick. I went with Northern Kentucky versus Houston. I've not done too much research on NKU, but they've been in the tournament a few times before. They have that experience. I think there were some bracketology people that were saying they might have been a 15 seed, and Houston is currently without their star guard Marcus Sasser. They didn't play well without him against Memphis. They showed some fight late in that game, and it shouldn't be an issue against NKU, but in the sense of statistics-wise, if there's any team I think is going to get upset at that 1 seed, it could be Houston. But obviously, it's only happened once, UMBC.
Yep.
I don't see it happening this year.
I also don't.
So with that, let's move on to 15 and 2. Give me your pick.
This one, I have gone back and forth in actually putting in my bracket or not, but I have Colgate over Texas.
That's the one I have. Walk me through this.
It's probably a popular pick for 15 over 2, but I really like this Colgate team, Alex. They've been in the tournament for the past 4 years or so. They have an experienced roster who's been on that tourney team for the past 4 years. They have a great offense. They're, I think, the best three-point shooting team in the conference, if not one of the best. I mean, country, not conference. 26-8 on the season, 17-1 in conference play. They are just shy of 80 points per game. They have the 7th highest offensive rating in the country. They got experienced team, like I said. 6'5" guard Tucker Richardson, 14 points per game, 5 rebounds, 6 assists. 6'10" forward Keegan Records, 13 points, 6 rebounds. And they have 3 other double-digit scorers, including 2 other seniors and a freshman in Braden Smith, not from Purdue. But yeah, they're a fun team to watch, Alex, and they're on an insane win streak. Last time they lost was a 1-point loss to American on February 4th. And then before that, you got to go all the way until December 22nd to Cornell.
Yeah, looking at the stats, to see Colgate get a 15 seed here is definitely not what Texas wanted to see. I mean,
Yeah.
they gave Arkansas fits back in 2020. I was watching that game and I was infuriated. So definitely Colgate Raiders, definitely up there. Let's move on to 14 versus 3. Who you got?
There's a couple different ones that I had my eye on.
Mm-hmm.
Montana State over Kansas State was definitely one I was looking at. Montana State's a good team. Again, another one, Grand Canyon over Gonzaga. Grand Canyon is a solid team. One we mentioned previously, Kennesaw State over Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
But the one I'm going with, and the most likely one in my opinion, is UC Santa Barbara over Baylor. If you haven't been paying attention to UC Santa Barbara, they have quite the team. They're led by elite guard AJ Mitchell and an elite wing in Miles Norris. They're both big. They're both score the ball well. And I just really like this UC Santa Barbara team. And honestly, all the UC satellite schools all played amazing this year, but UC Santa Barbara came out on top. They're all in that Big West Conference. UC Santa Barbara 15-5 in conference play. And yeah, they're just a good team, and they have a former top 100 recruit in Miles Norris who transferred from Oregon to UC Santa Barbara.
Definitely. And Baylor's defense is not great. They're in the 100s. And yeah, if UC Santa Barbara comes out making shots, that is definitely the upset I see.
Yep.
I also agree with K-State and Montana State. I haven't looked too much into it, like I said, but I think those two 14-3 games are definitely ones to watch. Let's move on to the ever popular 12, or it's not just yet, 13 versus 4.
Still a
first.
popular pick, Alex. And I have two upsets here, and these are two that I'm taking in my actual bracket.
Uh-huh.
I got Kent State over IU. I'm not sure if many of my listeners will like that, since most of Fishers is a IU fan.
Definitely.
And also give me Furman over Virginia.
Furman over Virginia, yes. Talk me through either one.
I'll start with Kent State over IU because that is the one I am more leaning towards. Kent State, they have a great defense, Alex.
Mm-hmm.
Defense is the name of their game, but their offense is just as good. They score 77 points per game. That's about top 60 in the country, and they give up just about 65 points per game, which is also top 60 in the country. They're a balanced team. Their defensive rating is top 20 in the country. And throughout this podcast, when I'm talking about teams, you will sense a trend. They have two senior guards that are so good. Sincere Carey, he's a 6'1" senior guard. He plays point guard for them. 18 points per game, 4 rebounds, 5 assists. Their two guard, Malik Jacobs, also a senior, 13 points per game, 5 rebounds, 4 assists. And they have a senior wing, and I'm going to mispronounce his name, but I'm going to go Miran Thomas, 6'8", about 11 points per game, 5 rebounds. They're an experienced team, Alex, and I really like them. I thought they actually got second in the MAC. I didn't think they weren't my pick out of the MAC. I thought Toledo was going to win it all.
Definitely.
But Kent State, they beat Toledo. They proved that they deserve to be here. And they've been pretty awesome all year, 28-6. And they have some great non-conference victories. Not victories, but some great close games.
They were within 5 to Houston. That is impressive.
Kent State, they held Houston to just 49 points.
Oh, my gosh.
Although they scored 44 of their own, but that was a close game. They lost to College of Charleston 74-72, and they lost to Gonzaga 73-66. This is a good team who, I mean, if just one of those games swung the other way, they'd probably be maybe a 10 or 9 seed.
Definitely.
This is a dangerous team that is good on both sides of the ball, and IU has shown to be inconsistent all year. I mean, Trace Jackson Davison's unstoppable, and he might score 30 points this game, but Kent State will probably overwhelm IU's backcourt, especially without Xavier Johnson. I mean, I generally think IU might be the underdog because of how popular this Kent State pick might be.
Definitely. And that game is good and all, but I'm going to talk about Furman and Virginia here. If there is any two teams that are more polar from each other, it is Kent State and Furman. Or Kent State, oh my gosh, Virginia and Furman.
Yeah.
We all know that Virginia and Tony Bennett's defense slows down the game. They hold teams down. But this Virginia team has struggled against some bad teams like Boston College. They just only put up 44 points against Duke. And this Furman team plays so fast and so offensively. If Furman can speed up the tempo of the game, they are going to win this game. They shoot .601 from 2 points, best in the nation.
Yep.
Furman's strength of schedule is not strong, but they only lost to Penn State by 5. And the way Virginia's playing, I think this is definitely danger for Virginia in the first round.
Yeah, to bounce off with that Furman pick, I'm also head over heels with this. They have a great offense. 8th most points per game with 82. And their defense is just outside the bottom 100, but 71 points per game given up is not awful.
And those are stats for a 13 seed we're talking about here.
Yeah. And they have the 4th highest offensive rating with 116.5. And guess what I'm about to say, Alex? They are led by a senior guard, Mike Bothwell, 18 points per game, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, and a senior wing in Jalen Slauson with 16 points, 7 rebounds. When you want to upset in March Madness, you need 2 things. You need either a senior backcourt or a senior heavy team that knows how to score the ball, or you need a senior heavy team that plays good defense and can shoot the ball. Furman, they shoot the ball. They're a senior heavy team, and I think they're going to win this game, and they could even go further in the March Madness.
Definitely, because in that 5-12 spot is Charleston and San Diego State. So how about we move to the 12-5 and we talk about that game, or is there any others on your list?
I actually have San Diego State beating Charleston, but Charleston is a good pick, but I think San Diego State wins that one. I think San Diego State is really good, and I'll actually get to that game a little bit later on.
Definitely.
But my 12-5 matchup is Drake over Miami. And what's crazy about Drake over Miami is I think Drake is objectively the worst 12 seed in this tournament, but the 12 seeds just got awful draws this year.
Yeah,
I mean, Oral Roberts is probably the best 12 seed, but having Duke as a 5 seed is just tough. VCU is another great 12 seed, but St. Mary's as a 5 seed, again, is just tough. And like we said, Charleston and San Diego State, is another tough draw. I think this Drake team just has the best luck of the draw with Miami. But Miami is no slouch. I mean, they are a great offense with Isaiah Wong, and they have another guard. Yeah.
Omier.
They have a great team. But Drake is – they have a good offense and a stingy defense. They have 5 senior contributors. And Miami is honestly a young team, which is why I think this upset might just happen.
Yeah, because Jimmy Larrañaga, the Miami coach, led Miami to the Elite 8 last year, actually, before they lost to Kansas.
Yeah.
But with a shift overall in the boat of the team, yeah. And like I said, this Drake team is good. 53rd offensively, 18th defensively.
Yep.
But Tucker DeVries is averaging 19 points a game. He's a sophomore.
Yeah.
But he has senior help in Roman Penn and Garrett Stoltz, averaging both 12 and 6. Sturtz is averaging 6 rebounds. Darnell Brody's averaging 7 rebounds. So they grab boards. Looking at some of their stats here, 18th in defensive rebounds. And they're pretty solid. They're pretty average everywhere else. But against Miami, who's missing Omier and is kind of the weakest 5 seed, definitely they could get that 12-5 upset. And then right there with them is a game we talked about, Kent State and Indiana. So if Drake wins their game against Miami, they're either facing a Kent State team or an Indiana team that is definitely a good spot for them to make a run to the Sweet 16.
Yeah, but in my bracket, I Actually, we'll wait for my our Cinderella section because I have Kent State going a little farther than some people may have.
I see. I think we will hold off on that.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna bring up one more 5-12 pick here.
Yeah.
VCU St. Mary's. I'm not gonna talk about it too much, but VCU's press defense is so good. They're 17th in Kim Pom. They got some guys averaging big numbers. St. Mary's as a non-power 5 playing in that WCC. I think VCU with their tournament experience as well could get that done.
For
so
sure.
There's our 12-5s right there. Let's move to the 11-6. Who do you got in the 11-6?
Well, first off, I will say, like I said, I think just about any 12 seed can beat any 5 seed this year.
Mm-hmm.
And it may be a year where there's multiple 12 seeds winning, but for my 11-6, you might not like this, Alex. I talked to this previously, but I have Providence over Kentucky. Providence, they have a good offense, a so-so defense, but they are honestly a team that is a little bit underseeded. They had a bit of a rough patch to end the season. But when they were playing good, I mean, Ed Cooley had them playing like one of the best teams in the country, honestly.
Definitely.
They were in the AP Top 25 for a good portion of the season. They obviously have some bad losses. I mean, they lost to Seton Hall, who's in the NIT, by like 30 points. That was a bad loss. They also lost to UConn by like 20. But also the Big East is a tough conference to win in. And they have some impressive wins as well. But they are led by sophomore Bryce Hopkins, who is a Kentucky transfer. And
he's going to be hungry.
And he's going to want to beat his old team, who he really didn't even play that much for. And he is shining with 16 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists per game for Providence. And they're also led by another big man, Ed Croswell, a senior, 6'8", 250 with 13 points, 8 rebounds. And they also have sophomore guard Devin Carter with 13 points, senior guard Noah Locke with 11 points, senior guard Jared Bynum with 10 points. I mean, this is a pretty solid Providence squad with a lot of people who can score the ball.
A balanced squad, so if anyone goes cold during their game, they can definitely spread the ball out and get positions. And I'll talk Kentucky on the other side for a bit because I like the Providence pick. But this Kentucky team can get hot. They have great wins. Sheboy is a beast down low. Mm-hmm. And coming off of the loss last year at St. Peter's, I would hope that this team is hungry to not have that happen again. For the sake for themselves, for the sake of the programs. But I think Providence definitely has a good spot at getting that 11-6 upset. My 11-6 pick is going to be Mississippi State if they beat Nevada.
Yeah.
If they win their game, Mississippi State over Iowa State.
Mississippi State plays Pitt in the playing game.
Pitt. I think they're going to beat Pitt. Pitt in the coming out of the ACC, not too strong, but we'll see. But Mississippi State is locked down on defense. I watched my Wildcats go up against them, and their offensive rating is great as well. Yeah. At 99.9, just a slither under 100. Tolu Smith averaging 15 points, 8 rebounds, backed up by Shaquille Moore, DJ Jeffries. They get pretty good on the board, 16th offensive rebounds. They get 8.8 steals per game. So creating possessions, especially in the tournament, is going to be lethal. They've played some tough conference play, but against a six seed Iowa State that lost their best player in Caleb Grill and has been on a downward slide in the last month of the season to the Big 12. I really like that pick.
And to add on, Alex, I also like that pick, Mississippi State over Iowa State. I actually just recently made that change in my bracket. When I saw this fact, I don't know the exact, but it is something like 9 of the last 10 tourneys have had a play-in team make the round of 32.
That's impressive.
And obviously, a 16 seed play-in is probably not going to make it. So it's one of these 11 seed play-ins, either Pittsburgh, Mississippi State, or Arizona State, Nevada. I think Mississippi State making to round 32 is probably the most likely of that choice because I'm a big TCU fan, and I think TCU is probably going to beat either one of those teams who makes it out the play-in. But let's go to the 10-7 now.
Definitely.
Who do you got for your 10-7 upset?
Penn State versus Texas A&M. Penn State is playing some great basketball right now. They just made it all the way to the Big Ten final, almost upset Purdue. Is it Jalen Pickett?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Jalen
Jalen
Pickett.
Pickett is a dog. He scores. He's tough. He's physical.
He's a big guard.
Definitely, and this Penn State team is good. And A&M is no slouch either.
Yeah.
But if there's any slot in the 10-7 game that I like, it's Penn State versus Texas A&M.
In mine, I have USC over Michigan State. And guess what USC has, Alex?
What they have.
They have 2 senior guards.
That's what you like to see.
I love to see 2 senior guards in the Big Ten, not Big Ten, in the conference. In the NCAA tournament. But USC, led by senior guards Boogie Ellis and Drew Peterson. Boogie Ellis scores about 18 points per game, 4 rebounds, 3 assists. Drew Peterson, he's a tall guard, 6'8", 14 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists. And they also have some freshman help with Trey White, who chips in 9 points, 5 rebounds. Kobe Johnson, the sophomore, 9 points, 5 rebounds. Reese Dixon Waters, 6'5", sophomore guard, and 10 points, 3 rebounds. They have a pretty solid team, Alex. A lot of former top 50 recruits. They did lose to Arizona State in their conference tournament, but it's still a good 10 seed. Not that great with their advanced statistics. Only 72 points per game, 67 points allowed per game. Just so in both categories. Their ratings aren't even that great. But they went 14-6 in the Pac-12, second in the conference. But honestly, what drives this is Michigan State, I think, is overseeded. We mentioned it earlier with the NIT teams. I mean, Rutgers has a better resume than Michigan State. Clemson has a better resume than Michigan State. They played quite the schedule. Obviously, everyone in the Big Ten did. The Big Ten was amazing this year. But, I mean, Michigan State, talking about non-impressive, I mean, they're 210th in scoring and just inside the top 100 for defense. I mean, I know Michigan State is going through that heartbreak with their shooting on campus, and
Definitely.
I mean, they played a great game against IU. Right after that, it was an emotional game for Tom Izzo, and I know playing against Tom Izzo in March is probably not the greatest idea, but I just have USC beating Michigan State and even maybe going on a run to the Sweet 16.
Definitely. Metrically wise, record-wise, USC is very close to USC and maybe could be considered better in some categories.
Yeah.
So that 10-7 pick is definitely a popular one. For my 10-7, I think we already talked 10-7. So let's move on to finally then the 9 versus 8. What do you got?
So 9-8, I mean, everyone knows the 9-8 is pretty much a coin toss every single time.
Yeah.
9 seeds could be 10 seeds, 9 seeds could be 8 seeds, 8 seeds could be 7 seeds, 8 seeds could be 9 seeds. I mean, the difference between 8 and 9 is definitely the smallest than from any other matchup. So I will start by saying just about any 9 seed could beat any 8 seed this year, just as is every year. I mean, West Virginia over Maryland is probably a good pick. Auburn over Iowa. But the 2 I'm going to focus on, the one I am taking is Illinois over Arkansas. Illinois, they have a great senior backcourt once again.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, the 9-8 is always a coin toss. Arkansas has fallen off of a cliff this year. They had a great non-conference season, but once they got to conference play, I don't know. I think they had a big injury. I think that was part of the reason why they fell off. But Illinois, they have a top 85 defense in terms of scoring, 95.5 defensive rating. They're a solid defensive squad. 5th in the Big Ten. I mean, nothing crazy, but like I said, the Big Ten is tough. And they're led by senior guard Terrence Shannon, 17 points per game, 5 rebounds, 3 assists. Senior Baylor transfer Matthew Mayer, 13 points, 6 rebounds. And this roster is filled with top 90 recruits, a lot in the 2021 and 2022 recruiting classes. Um, this is a good team. Brad Underwood, the coach, usually has them playing hard in March. Um, I mean, it's a coin toss, but if I had to pick one, it's Illinois over Arkansas.
Yeah, and I was not impressed too much with Arkansas down the stretch this year because I saw them play Kentucky twice.
Yep.
Arkansas sucks at two things. They suck at free throws and they suck at 3 points. And in late game situations, those are two things you want to
Especially
have.
in March.
Definitely. They play defense well, but Iowa's offense is right there with them. So those things are going to offset. So Iowa plays a bit better defense. They get that dub. My 9-8 pick is also a SEC Big Ten game, and it is Auburn against. Did I switch my teams up again? Illinois, Arkansas. Illinois' offense is also really good.
Yeah.
Iowa's offense is elite. But Illinois' offense is really good. They'll pick off Arkansas's defense. There we go. But then going back to Iowa again, Iowa versus Auburn.
Yep.
I like Auburn in this game. Auburn has struggled in a few games, but they've avenged their loss to Tennessee. They got pretty close to my Wildcats, I think once or twice.
Yep.
But Wendell Green, Johnny Brown, Jalen Williams, and Alan Flanagan all averaging 10 points a game. Offensive-wise, not too great, but defensive-wise, they're doing just fine. And against that Iowa defense that really struggles, if Iowa just comes out flat and can't stop Auburn, Auburn's going to run through them. Iowa had trouble last year with Richmond, so I really like Auburn to get that dub. And that is our upsets analysis.
I will say I have one more 9 seed, FAU over Memphis. I am taking Memphis in my bracket, but I love this FAU team. Like 31 wins, just about undefeated in conference play. Let me find their exact record. Yeah, 31-3, 18-2 in the Conference USA, a top 30 offense and a top 40 defense. Top 15 offensive rating, top 20 defensive rating. I mean, this is a good FAU team, but they are very young. They're led by 4 sophomores, John L. Davis, Elijah Martin, Vladislav Golden, and Nick Boyd. 13 points, 10 points, 9 points for that sophomore quad. And Golden is 7'1". He's a big man. I mean, this is a good team, but it's a young team, and I wouldn't be surprised if in the coming years they get like a 7 seed, a 6 seed, 5 seed once these guys are juniors and seniors.
I agree with that take because I look at Memphis, and Memphis is loaded with talent and they're loaded with experience. Kendrick Davis averaging 22.1 a game.
Insane.
DeAndre was 17.8. This Memphis team has played a pretty good out-of-conference schedule. I think they won a few, lost a few.
Yeah.
They kept Houston close twice, and then they beat them in the conference tournament. So I wouldn't say they're underseeded, but this Memphis team as an 8 seed definitely could beat this FAU team and maybe even give their 1 seed a scare.
Yep.
So we've talked Cinderellas, we've talked kind of our closer matches, but let's talk about the favorites. Let's go with what everyone wants to see. Who is going to win it all this year?
I actually think I got a little bit more Cinderellas to talk about,
all right, talk
Alex.
about that first. It's all good.
Yeah. So a couple things about Cinderellas. There has been a 7 seed or lower in the Final Four in 8 of the last 11 tournaments, Alex.
Uh-huh.
And there's been a 5 seed who has made it at least a 5 seed in 10 of the last 12. So I got a 7 seed and a 5 seed in my Final Four. In my actual bracket, I have Texas A&M and San Diego State making to my Final Four. San Diego State has an elite defense, Alex. I mean, everyone knows it. Definitely. And they won a tough Mountain West. I know Mountain West is a mid-major, but it was pretty solid this year. They have a couple teams. They have Utah State.
Bids.
Yeah, they have
Utah State, Boise State, San Diego State, Nevada.
Yeah, that is a lot for a mid-major. It's a tough conference. They have 6 seniors contributing at least 6 points per game, led by Matt Bradley with 13 points, 4 rebounds, 2 assists. Speaking about defense, they have a top 10 perimeter defense in the country. They hold opponents to less than or just about 30% from 3. In the non-conference, they had a 17-point loss to Arizona, a overtime loss to Arkansas before their injuries, and a 7-point loss to St. Mary's. I mean, they're a good team, and with their defense and just enough offense, I have them going the distance. And they honestly have probably the easiest path. They have a tough 12 seed matchup with Charleston, but then they either have
Virginia or Furman.
which I think it could be Furman, so that puts them to the Sweet 16. And then Alabama in the Sweet 16 is probably the weakest 1 seed, just simply off of the off the court issues. I mean, it's tough to compete when you have that much attention on you outside of the court.
Definitely.
And then they either have Arizona, Baylor, or Missouri in the Elite Eight if they make it that far. So that's why I have them going to the Final Four. The Aggies, you probably know a little bit more just because you watched them play Kentucky, I'd assume twice. But
yeah, this team is disciplined. Wade Taylor is
yeah,
so good. They make their free throws, and Buzz Williams just coaches them so hard. And they talk to their post-game interviews, and they just show that they have such a desire after last year's snubbing, which was a joke. Michigan made it. They beat Colorado State.
Yeah.
But this team is hungry for it. And looking at their path, they play a Penn State team that is good right now, but we don't know going into March if that will stay that way, knowing Penn State's lack of tournament experience. Then they get a Texas team that could potentially get upset by Colgate and isn't the greatest overall. And then they'll have to face most likely Xavier or Mississippi State.
And Xavier, as a Butler fan, I mean, Butler beat Xavier, another claim to the school. But Xavier as a 3 seed is definitely high this year. I mean, they're a great team. They're a big team. They score the ball. They play solid defense, but they're definitely more of a 4 or 5 seed in my opinion, and a 3 seed is a little bit high. But I have A&M beating them, and I also have A&M beating Houston in the Elite Eight.
Yeah, because if A&M does get past Xavier, they're playing a Houston team that is really good. They are the Goliath of the tournament, but they have a week out of conference schedule, and we haven't seen them play anyone tough since December or November. Marcus Sasser gets injured again, and A&M definitely can make that run to the Final Four.
And a little bit more about A&M. They get to the free throw line more than anyone else in the country. They have the most attempts and the most makes. They get a lot of offensive rebounds, which leads to second chance points. And they went through quite the adversity with a awful non-conference play. I mean, they lost to Murray State by 11. They got pummeled by Colorado by like 30. Lost to Boise State by 15. A 4-point loss to Memphis is not bad, but then also a 5-point loss to Wofford.
Oh, man.
That non-conference, I mean, I think they're underseeded just because that non-conference play, this is probably a 5 seed caliber team, if not a 4 seed. They just had a awful stretch of games, but they picked it up with 15-3 in SEC play.
Like you're saying, those 5 seeds, this pseudo 5 seed in Texas A&M can definitely make a run.
You got any Final Four Cinderellas that you want to talk about, Alex?
Not too much right now. I have not gone back to my bracket since Sunday night. I got tired. Flex day yesterday. Went rock climbing. My hands are a little bit sore. But I definitely think I'm liking what you're saying with San Diego State. I'm liking what you're saying with A&M. I'll also have to go back and look at everything again.
And I also have some Sweet 16 Cinderellas. Because in my opinion, a Cinderella is obviously someone not expected to win. But they got to make it to one of the Sweet 16 Elite 8 Final Fours. I mean, just because a 15 seed wins one game doesn't mean they're a Cinderella. They got to win a couple of games. So I have Kent State and USC making to the Sweet 16. I talked about USC earlier, led by Boogie Ellis and Drew Peterson. Opponents shoot 39% from the field, 42% from inside the arc. Overtime loss to Tennessee in the non-conference, and they have a 3-point win against Auburn. For Kent State, talked about them a little bit, led by senior guards Sincere Carey, 18 points, 4 rebounds, 5 assists, and Malik Jacobs, 13, 5, and 4. And also talked about their non-conference play with close losses to Houston, Charleston, and Gonzaga. I mean, and the route I have Kent State taking, beating IU first round, and then beating Drake in the second round. So it is honestly a pretty easy path not easy path, but that second round game I think will be Drake. Even if it's Miami, though, I am confident this Kent State team is Sweet 16 bound. And if they have a rematch with Houston in the Sweet 16, they might come out on top this time and be a 13th seed in the Elite Eight, which would not surprise me whatsoever.
Definitely, they definitely know that team. But now that I look at it, I think Oral Roberts. I'm surprised we haven't even brought them up yet. I think I was going to bring them up.
Yeah.
But now that I look at it, Duke is an amazing team, but Max Asmith and Oral Roberts is an offensive juggernaut.
They just know how to win. Also,
they know how to win as well.
They have a 18-game win streak. But what deterred me away is Duke has a 9-game win streak, and Duke is just so good. They started off a little rocky, but
got this team going. So
Duke
far.
is Duke. It's hard to go against them in March. I do have them losing to Purdue in the Sweet 16 though, but speaking about Purdue, unless you got any more Cinderellas, let's claim our champions while we have about 10 minutes left.
Definitely gotta get out of here before the bell starts. So who is your champion right now?
I have UCLA beating Purdue in my championship, and I am okay with claiming that now, and I will stick with it, and because I think it is gonna happen. In case you need a actual visual, I got Texas A&M, San Diego State, Purdue, and UCLA in my Final Four, and I have UCLA beating Purdue, which hurts me. I'm a Purdue fan, but I mean this UCLA are led by, guess what? 2 senior guards, great senior guards with Jamie Jock, I believe you pronounce it.
I think it's Jaime Jaquez. It might be Jamie Jaquez, Jaime Jaquez.
Yeah, sorry for that pronunciation, but 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, and Tiger Campbell, another senior guard, 13 points, 3 rebounds, 5 assists.
Yeah, he's been doing that for years now.
They were both on that Final Four team as an 11 seed. They know how to make a run in March. Top 10 defense in the country. They get lots of steals, lots of blocks. And they don't shoot a lot of threes. They know how to drive to the hoop. They're a disciplined team. They're a veteran team. They're not going to force threes if they're not there, and they're going to drive to the hoop, like I said. They were on a 12-game win streak prior to a brutal loss against Arizona. It was a 2-point loss. There was a couple of controversial calls, including a monster poster that Amari Bailey had on Arizona that was called a charge, which
that was not a charge.
That was not a charge whatsoever. I think if that isn't called, it gives them momentum. They probably win that game if
that 1 seed.
That's not a charge. And some notable non-conference outcomes: a 9-point loss to Illinois, 5-point loss to Baylor, a 27-point win versus Maryland, and a 10-point win versus Kentucky. They've had some losses, which, you need losses to compete in March. You need to know how to lose to actually put it all on the line, I think.
Yeah, a lot of the favorites in March the last 10 years that have won so many games have not finished the job. Definitely.
Yeah, you need to go through adversity during the regular season to make it in March, and UCLA has. And, like I said a couple years ago, everyone knows they went from the play-in to the Final Four, a great run, and almost beat Gonzaga that year, right?
Because Gonzaga hit that crazy buzzer beater.
That was the COVID year. Yeah. But yeah, UCLA, they're a great team. They're an old team. They've been on runs before, and I think this year they bring it home. Who's your pick, Alex, before we head out?
I originally said Houston, but I'm going to switch my mind, and I'm going to go with Kansas. We haven't brought them up yet, but this Jayhawks team is so good.
They are good.
So many quad 1 wins.
Yeah.
They didn't finish the job against Texas, but that was really because Bill Self wasn't available to coach. He is currently sick, and I think that's really the one thing that's holding him back right now. And if the one thing that's holding you back from winning the championship is not on your team, but rather a sickness, I think it's going to happen. I saw them play Kentucky. Jalen Wilson, late in that game, took over, made some clutch threes. Grady Dick is an amazing freshman player. KJ Adams, Kevin McCullough. This team just gets wins. They steal the ball 8 times a game. They rebound pretty all right. 16 assists per game. They shoot the two well. And looking at their path, they have some tough teams in the regional. They'll blow
Yeah,
past Howard. But then against Arkansas or Illinois, I don't
that's
see
a,
that being an
that's a.
issue.
I think that's gonna be closer than some people think, but
Yeah, I
I
can.
agree. But their first true test will be either St. Mary's or UConn in the Sweet 16. I mean, St. Mary's great defense that can shut down that offense.
And UConn metrically is insane themselves.
Yeah,
But UConn's had a few struggles, and once they get past that point, part of the tournament's about getting who can play 6 games in a row and
yeah,
get through 6 games. And Kansas has had stretches in their schedule where they've played 6, 7 ranked teams in a row.
yeah.
So they get to UConn, they get to St. Mary's. They'll know what it feels like to have to go against another juggernaut. They get past UConn. They
Then
play.
they play UCLA in
They
the
play
Elite
your
Eight, most
favorite,
likely. And I would bet that the winner of this tournament is coming out that West bracket because that West bracket is tough.
It is loaded. Yeah.
I mean, it has Kansas as the 1 seed, obviously UCLA as the 2 seed, the two favorites. But they have some sleepers with St. Mary's and UConn. VCU is a favorite to go on a run. They also have Gonzaga as a 3 seed, which we haven't even talked about Gonzaga.
Yeah.
I have them losing actually to TCU in the second round, but Gonzaga is more than capable of making a run. They're still Gonzaga. They're still the same Gonzaga that they've been the past 4 years, past 5 years.
Yeah.
And Gonzaga, I mean, outside of Jalen Suggs, I mean, they keep their players for 4 years usually. I mean, Drew Timme is a senior now. I mean,
Dude's been balling forever.
yeah, I mean, Gonzaga can easily come out of this West region. UCLA can easily come out. Kansas could come out. St. Mary's could come out. UConn could come out. I mean, TCU could even come out.
Definitely.
Northwestern could go on a run. Northwestern has shown to beat Purdue. They've had some great games. I mean, this West region is tough, and the winner out of it, I think, is whoever it is going to win the tournament. I just so happen to have UCLA coming out of it.
Be it Houston, UCLA, or whoever else wins this March Madness tournament, we are sure to get another year of great March basketball. I'm looking forward to it. I think you're looking forward to it. And, I think if this podcast is a success, we'll definitely come back next week after the round of 64 and the round of 32. We'll walk through what happened, where we went wrong, then what's going to happen afterwards. I wish we could stay longer. It's 11:19. We've walked you through it. That was Sports Talk with me and David Jacobs. Any last thoughts?
I'm just excited for the last time to sneakily watch March Madness games in class because next year once I'm in college, we're both in college. You don't really have to sneak it anymore. So
Definitely.
last time doing that. Yeah, pretty much all I gotta say is UCLA will win this tournament, and Texas A&M is gonna make the Final Four. Those are my 2 takes.
All right. So that wraps it up for us here in the studio. I'm Alex Duer. Here was David Jacobs, and that's it for us. See y'all.
Thank you.